Well, I definitely want to welcome everybody. We appreciate everybody showing up, all our speakers and attendees. Tonight, we're going to talk about, tonight afternoon, wherever you're at, we're going to talk about different paths in tech, um, from, software development, Scrum masters, recruiters. We've got a few speakers from quite a few different areas of tech. This is hosted by Code Connector. We are a volunteer community. Everybody here is volunteering to be here. Everybody at Code Connector volunteers to do what we do. We just really are passionate about tech. We're passionate about helping other people get into tech. So if you're not part of the Slack, I highly recommend looking at the Slack. It is the best group of people I've ever known in my life. So definitely, and if someone has a chance to share the link, we will probably get the link shared in the chat. And sadly, we're not hosted by Lawrence, who normally does a much better job introducing everything. But I do my best, and I will do my best tonight. So tonight we are going to start with Lawrence Lockhart. He is a software developer who loves sharing solutions to modern web development. With over 20 years of professional experience in supply chain, hospitality management, and technology, Lawrence advocates for a customer-first approach to solving business problems. A lifelong learner himself, Lawrence takes great pride investing personal time in future techies in their career paths and his role as an advisor to the Code Connector nonprofit tech meetup. Currently a senior developer advocate at Be Free. When he's not wearing this tech hat, Lawrence enjoys cooking, gardening, and spending time with his family. And Lawrence, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Thanks, Joseph. And you are already killing it, sir. So none of that down talk. You hear me? First things first, is my video and audio okay? Are we doing all right? Gotta have a mangled setup. I see thumbs up. All right, great. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. What a huge crowd. This reminds me of some of the old days. So good stuff. Thank you for being here. I have to start with a disclaimer. I just paid attention to our advertisement for tonight closely this morning, and it said Lawrence Lockhart, DevRel expert. I don't know that guy. He does not exist. I would not even pretend to be an expert in some area and field that even companies are still trying to figure out what the heck is this and do we need it and how do you know? So for tonight, look at the screen. I'm Lawrence Lockhart. I am a senior developer advocate at Be Free. Be Free produces the premier content email editor software in the world. Some of you who are early in new career, email development is still a thing. It might not be the sexiest thing, but it might be an in that you need. And for those who do social media, if you don't, I don't blame you. It is the garbage. But if you do social media, feel free to not only follow me, but interact. Like, I want to talk to you. I use the moniker of Lawrence Decodes on most platforms. And so what you want to know from me is, what the heck is DevRel? Good question. And for that matter, why do we have so many different titles and so many different names for it? I'm just going to go top down. So developer experience, we can think of that as being the biggest umbrella. And it really points to our main concern and why you wouldn't want to have this thing as a single entity. You are most concerned with everything dealing with the developer experience, whether they are top of funnel, middle funnel, whether they've been with your company for 20, 30 years. What is their experience like with your SDK, with your docs, with onboarding, with everything? That would be the umbrella term to talk about the experience. Those who are in the UI UX world, you talk about the developer experience. The UX literally means what's their experience with the UI. So what about the overall developer experience? That's not the role, but it's a good understanding, because the roles come down to typically either developer advocate or developer relations engineer, which we shorten and say DevRel. Developer advocate would be another kind of umbrella term, because depending on the size of the organization, you might find a number of roles on the developer advocate team. You might have a technical writer, or a person who just does video, or a person who just manages events, and they're on the DevRel team. In smaller organizations, it's usually like one and done. So one person might be all the things. And last but not least, developer relations engineer does point to what we actually are. We're engineers first, and we're concerned about how our company relates to developers and how those developers relate back to us. Now, in an earlier iteration, one of my OG mentors from Code Connector from Memphis, so I absolutely love, James Q. Quick. His first role out of college, and he graduated from Vanderbilt, was technical evangelist. I don't think we use that one anymore. So if you see that in vogue, like at a company, like, don't go there. They're way too old. Today we call it DevRel or developer advocate. That being said, I kind of said a lot and I didn't say anything. What is my actual definition of DevRel? So this is my definition. Now, if you go and Google this or Gemini this and read something different, don't come back and say, Lawrence, I read something different from Gemini. I'm telling you, this is not from Gemini. This is me. I say DevRel is the person who advocates on behalf of a company to a technical community. And the other side of the coin is they advocate on behalf of that technical community back to the company itself. You really don't have a single role that does that. Very often, those two get split into many roles. And we might loosely consider doing some of these if you're in sales or solutions engineering or marketing, but a developer advocate, ideally a DevRel, does both sides of the coin. We're interested, and it says advocate, which means it's not purely selling. It's not purely marketing. Advocating in the purest form just means I'm on your side. So I'm on the side of my company when it comes to approaching a technical community, which you are, but at the same time, and almost more importantly, I'm on the side of the developers in the field and representing them back to the company. And if you think about that, it rolls up to this word we use all the time, empathy. Now, empathy is about that human-to-human connection. How much am I actually concerned about you? How much am I thinking about walking a mile in your shoes? And I say that kind of jokingly as I have this AI-generated image and these first 3 AI-generated bullet points. But the last bullet point is mine, because for me, empathy is all about, do you even get me? Do you get do you get me as a Java developer? You gave me these docs, but does that make sense for me as a Java developer? Does it make sense for me as a Python developer or a React person? Do you actually get me? When you show and demonstrate consistently that you get the person, that would be a good demonstration of empathy. And that is key in being a decent developer relations engineer. And when I think about the models that I'm modeling myself after, what would I consider some of the best in the field? There are people who I call trusted peers. That's my ideal developer advocate, a trusted peer, someone who's been in the trenches with you. They've been through the storm. They've broken the database. They've had the 3 a.m. fire alarm call on a Saturday morning, and they were on vacation. They've been in those trenches, and now they're talking about product and they're talking about technology. A trusted peer. And a few names that I consider to be trusted peers in my book are, number 1, Scott Hanselman. Of course, he is the god of Microsoft. I forgot his actual position. He's way up there. He's so high that's like where the L's run out of numbers on levels.fyi. He's that high. But absolutely love Scott Hanselman. Kelsey Hightower, who of course is retired, did some amazing things at Google in that developer experience space. Fun fact, and this wasn't even in my notes in practice, we had back in my FedEx days what we called a Google Day, Google Cloud Day. And they shipped a bunch of folks here from Google, and Kelsey was one of them, and he spoke. One of the first things that he said was, I'm not here to tell you to just lift and shift everything from FedEx and put it on GCP and get off OCI. In fact, there's much of what you do that doesn't even match or fit well with our systems. But I am here to show you where the good matches are. And I thought that was really mature, because that's something I would never expect to hear from a salesperson purely. They want to sell you all the things. But Kelsey is a good developer advocate with empathy in mind. He wants to make sure you're getting the things that you need. Another key name who I'm looking forward to seeing in Dallas next month, is Dan Vega. He is a Java champion. He is Mr. Spring Boot over at VMware, does some great teaching with all things Java and Java integrated with AI. Definitely look up him. And I included this last one with a question mark. I don't know if you all heard of her before, but Sarah Dresner is considered like a giant in the world of DevRel, but she's actually not a DevRel. Sarah Dresner is one of the directors of technology. No, she is a director of engineering at Google, but she has a former role as a VP of developer experience, but she's still considered to be in that DevRel space. And I think that's really important for 2 reasons. Number 1, well, you know that DevRel is not a terminal role, right? You can go, if you're interested in going into senior leadership, you can go to senior leadership from a DevRel position. She's done it. Others have done it as well. But number 2, and this one might be more important for those of you who are early career, you can do DevRel things without the DevRel title. And what I found as I mentored folks who are early career, I tell them all the time, one of the easiest ways to get hired to do a thing is to do the thing prior and have the evidence that you're successful and good at doing the thing. So if you want to do, and I'm going to list some of the things in a minute, do them now. You don't have to have anybody give you that title. So what are the things? What does a day-to-day look like? And I'm going to look at this screen over here because I cannot read my notes on this one. You need to be proficient with code. This is ideally, right? You're going to be writing code for demos, code for examples, code for MVP, for tools. You will be actually writing code. You do not need to think your coding skills are going to go to waste. A good coder is needed to be a good developer relations engineer. The next one is content. You should totally expect an average DevRel role to do a lot of things around content. Production for consumption, I call it. This might be written, so you should have some decent writing skills above and beyond Grammarly, or just using the edit button on Google Docs, or just throwing something in AI. You should be able to actually write. It might be docs. It might be readmes, right? You should have decent oral communication for events like this, for podcasts and things, webinars. You should be decent on video as well as IRL, so meetups and conferences. All of these are types of things that a DevRel might be involved in doing, and social as well. Then there's community, right? Totally normal for a DevRel to engage in social media, to run or engage on the Discord, the discourse, the Slack, to be in charge of hosting meetups, hosting hackathons. All these are totally normal for a DevRel. I'm not saying you will absolutely do all of these, but depending on where you land, you might do one or more. Understand clearly that DevRel is not a standardized field. So you go to a computer science school or engineering school, get a computer science degree to become a computer scientist. You get a cloud engineer certification to become a cloud engineer. There's no set standardized curriculum for developer advocacy because it borrows from so many disciplines, and so it's implemented differently at every imaginable company. And the last C I added here is collaboration, because we do a lot of collaboration. If there's an open source opportunity, you might be involved in that to make sure the experience is great for developers. If there's external partnerships, I'm involved in an AI enablement initiative at BeFree right now. And right now we're looking at the partnerships. Who are the low code and the no code tools that we need to have formal agreements with, or loose agreements with, or at least make some integrations with? You might be in charge of that, as well as internal opportunities for collaboration. DevRel does some of all of this. And you might be thinking, well, what kind of person is suited for this? Great question. Plenty of you, but here's some of the traits. Do you like to just nerd out on things? Just geek out, right? And it doesn't have to be a particular company, just the general idea of just going really deep on a thing. You might make a good DevRel. Are you interested in just helping people in general? See, before I became a DevRel 2 years ago at Vaadin, I was helping like mentor junior devs, and I was only a mid-level dev myself. So it wasn't like I was a senior principal staff. I was only mid-level, but I knew enough to help somebody who wasn't where I am. And I wanted to help them. I wanted to offer that freely. It was later on, after making all these videos and doing all these meetup talks and conference talks, I found out I can get paid for that in a different context, and I became a DevRel. But you should have some interest, some desire to actually help other people. Are you comfortable around people? That's a big deal. I wouldn't become a DevRel if you don't like actually meeting people and talking to them and looking them in the eye and shaking their hands, right? Or are you comfortable on video? I cringed at myself on video. I've later gotten over that. So you can overcome some of these if they're blockers for you, but somewhere within your makeup, you should be comfortable being on video. Last but not least, context switching. And I don't only mean a different day, a different task. Within a single day, you can easily be on 3, 4, 5 completely different unrelated tasks, which are not only different in the nature of how they're executed, but the way your brain works. Because your brain works vastly differently when you're deep in code, writing code, from read this doc and compare it to that version of the doc and compare it to our competitor's version of a doc and try to figure out what's going to be the final best version. And you're just reading plain text. Very different versus getting ready for a presentation like tonight. So context switching is very normal in this field. So having said all that, who needs DevRel anyway? How do you know? Does every company need DevRel? This is my definition. Again, if you Google it or Gemini it, you will not see this. This is Lawrence's assessment of who should have DevRel. It's a company with code-based products. That's number one. A target market of developers. So we're selling to devs. Unmet dev needs exist. I could spend a whole hour on that one, but there's unmet needs that they have, the developer community at large, that are not being served by your existing personnel. And an accurate assessment of what DevRel can and cannot do. I watched in the last 2 years a large company that will remain unnamed completely get rid of their developer advocacy program, the entire team, because at the end of the day, what they were hoping DevRel can do was not something that DevRel is actually designed to do. It is very much top of funnel. It can be middle funnel, but it's absolutely not sales, and it's not purely marketing. It's its own beast that I described earlier. So what can we hope to get from DevRel? Great question. What are the KPIs? I know y'all business-minded folks. Everything's a KPI. What are the KPIs? And I kind of did this weird, but the top one on the left goes with the top one on the right. So KPIs under the events column. Number of talks. How many talks are we giving? How big is the audience? Are they engaging? Are we getting some meaningful connections and relationships that we can leverage? What is the attendance like at an event? If you host a hackathon or a meetup, what is the attendance like? Those are some KPIs. Under the product adoption umbrella, we can look at how long does it take to get to Hello World? If it takes too long just to get a sample up, people will just choose something else. They're out. DevRel and developer experience folks want to help that time to world get as small as possible. What is our activation rate, feature adoption, product feedback? All these are part of the product adoption and feedback umbrella. How about content? Yes, video views actually matter. And how long do they stay on? Because they'll have 1,000 views, but they only stay on for 1 minute out of 15. We're probably needing to do something different. So the watch time, blog visits, and GitHub metrics are all super important. And on the label of community, definitely want to look at how many community members do we have? Do we actually have a set community anywhere? What is that content like? Are they engaging? Are they talking and asking questions? Does the community write content for us? Greatest thing in the world for a DevRel is to have a community, and the community is writing about your company for you. Absolutely love that. Social media engagement and time to answer. So that understanding and the background that I have has led me to where I am now. I could not be a good DevRel and not mention my company at least once. So again, yes, I work for BeFree. We make the premier email editor in the world. Most folks that use us don't even know that they're using us because we have a BeFree SDK that I represent that you can embed into your own application, white label it, rebrand it under your company's labeling and branding, and then sell that as part of a larger package to an end user. So love for you to check that out, developers.befree.io. I'll be helping working on docs, videos, and other things there. And again, if you do socials, don't only follow me, please talk to me. I'm just a regular dude like you, and I would love to engage with you online. 14 minutes and 53 seconds. Clock it.
You are amazing, Lawrence. I was watching the clock too, and I was like, I bet he's already keeping an eye on it also. Figure we have about 20 minutes per speaker here, so we can open up for 5 minutes of questions since you got started a little 5 minutes late, if there are any questions. If anybody does have questions, just raise your hand. And Lawrence, awesome job, as always.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're very kind and supportive. Am I still sharing screen? I should stop sharing screen. There we go. Sorry about that.
Anyone have any questions for Lawrence?
One from Zion.
Yeah, Lawrence, great job.
Thank you.
On the presentation. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, where would you apply for a role like this? Like, what websites should you look for? You know, I got my notes here, right? I know, like, there's the usual, like, LinkedIn, like ZipRecruiter, right? But are there any, like, niche, like, websites or, like, applications that you could find these positions?
Yeah, I have seen one website that focuses on developer experience roles, but I have not had any success with it. So I won't necessarily advocate something that hasn't worked for me. My first DevRel job, I got off LinkedIn. Easy apply.
LinkedIn? For sure.
Easy apply. My last job I got from LinkedIn in terms of the application process, but actually that led me to their website. In the process of applying for these jobs, and the last time I did it was between January and like March, April-ish, because I had a layoff from the last job in January. I used LinkedIn, I think Monster, tons of company websites, and then some that were just, I'm in enough communities where people are always talking about open roles, and I'll just see them directly from there, and they might be posted any number of places.
Like the networking. The networking
is huge. Just being in the right places allows you sometimes to hear things that you wouldn't know about otherwise. Case in point, right now, this is a Code Connector meetup. My very first job in tech, I found from the Code Connector Slack channel. The Code Connector Slack channel got a feed of all the local job roles, including one that was on Craigslist, a place that I would never look for a tech job. But it was on there. It was pulled into the Code Connector Slack. I applied, got the job, and that's how I got out of flipping burgers.
Most definitely.
To answer your question, all the resources, use everything. Your search of resources should be completely tied to your level of desperation.
I got you. I appreciate you, man.
Sure,
thank you. I got you on LinkedIn as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
For sure.
You got a comment there, Lawrence. And I think we got time to squeeze in one more question if someone else has one. No question. You're muted, Lawrence, if you're talking.
I was saying sorry for the sweat. I turned off my fan so it wouldn't be all loud in the mic, but now I'm hot. Sorry about that. Down south.
I'm in a school bus with no insulation right now, so yeah, same here. I turned my fan off.
Okay, you get it. Thank y'all for the questions and your attention. Joseph, feel free to keep it moving.
Yep. Thanks again, Lawrence. Absolutely awesome as always. Okay, next up, we have Joe Ferguson, the software developer specializing in infrastructure, DevOps, and backend development. He's actively involved in several open source projects and one of the founders of Memphis Technology. Joe, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I am a giant slacker and didn't prepare any slides. So I was approached by Lawrence and he was like, hey, just come talk about what you do every day. And I can't really say no to Lawrence on too many things. So I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. So I don't have any slides, but I do DevOps and my company calls it SysOps. Your company may call it system administrators. Your bigger companies may call them SREs, and some larger companies, those are all different positions. And essentially what I do is I manage all the server infrastructure. And I'm lucky enough that I've been doing this long enough. Well, I've been doing DevOps for about 6 years dedicated. I've been a programmer for about 20 years professionally. So in my career, I've been able to level up and skill up from a junior programmer who didn't know anything and didn't do well in college to teaching myself how to do a lot of different things. And I got plugged into a lot of different communities really early in my career, or early-ish in my career, and the communities have done everything for my career. Hearing Lawrence talk about what the different places he goes and job searches and how he's gotten his different jobs, every one of my tech jobs, except for the first one, I've gotten from a member of a tech community, and that speaks volumes on how important tech communities are. Even the jobs that only lasted about a year and a half or a year I got from the tech industry. And getting laid off, I can immediately reach out to my networks and be able to see who's hiring, and those kinds, like these kinds of events and these kinds of networking kind of events are pivotal for your career and growing your career and growing your network. And make sure you're authentic and make sure you're doing it organically and not just trying to get your numbers up, right? Be a real human, kind of like what Lawrence was talking about, and engage with other people. And that's the key thing on growing your network. So what does a DevOps do? Well, when I was at a larger company, DevOps were different roles. You had SREs, which are site responsibility engineers, and those are your people who are essentially looking at live services and making sure they stay live. If they don't stay live, they have playbooks or they have guides that they break out, and then they go and they fix the thing. And what they'll typically do is come back and do an after action report or root cause analysis and figure out why did the service go down. In some cases, they'll even say or make suggestions on scaling. This server went down because it didn't have enough resources. It needs more RAM. It needs more CPU. And some other jobs in that same kind of organization would be a system administrator, which is the person who's actually managing the operating system in the virtual machines, or even the bare metal if you're at a company that still hosts things themselves. So there's all these different individual roles, and the tech industry kind of globs them all together under this DevOps umbrella. And even more recently, DevOps is kind of shying away into these other positions where people are kind of going back to traditional system administrator or cloud engineer. Cloud ops is another fancy buzzword. But what I do and what I enjoy doing is playing with Linux systems. And I got an early start in the late 90s in playing with Linux. And so I had a head start towards a lot of that. Even before I got my first paying job doing tech stuff in 2005, I was playing with Linux servers and learning Linux. It was this ridiculous thing where all or if not all or most of the software was completely free. So I didn't have to go buy a Microsoft compiler to learn how to program a language. I could just go and learn the language or learn the web server. So from that aspect, it was really interesting to kind of grow during that period when all of the stuff was new. I mentioned earlier I didn't have a good time in college. College and I didn't really get along. But it's a lot of how I learn is by doing, like tinkering and breaking things and putting them back together. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. It's just part of the process of learning. That's how I learned. And the coursework did not treat me very well at all. And I got kind of a humbling reminder of that at my old job. That I was with a startup doing DevOps, and we took a class on a tool that was supposed to revolutionize how we did a thing. And I couldn't focus. I couldn't do the thing because it was coursework. It was like, oh, here's X, Y, and Z. I was like, no, just give me the finished product. Let me go tinker. So if that's your mindset, if you like to tinker with things, DevOps might be something you're interested in, because in my position in smaller companies, I've always been able to kind of touch a lot of things. In small companies, you're always going to wear a lot of hats. So my typical day-to-day doing DevOps today for a small consultant company is really just going through customers and making sure systems are online, making sure systems aren't falling over. We have one customer that's very large, and we have auto scaling events that fire on a schedule, and then also on metrics based on usage of the application servers. So just going and making sure that those systems are spinning up and tearing down as they're supposed to, making sure you're not like running up the AWS build just to heat a data center for no reason, and give feedback on, hey, this service is over provisioned or under provisioned, that sort of thing. So a lot of what I do is also kind of research into, how has this application historically been processing? How, what are the metrics that it needs? How can we optimize that? And even further, getting into the financial side of, how do you optimize the AWS spend, or how do you optimize your cloud spend, and making sure that you're not blowing away all of the startups' funds on your AWS bill for S3 for a month just because you found a cool new thing to go do, right? It's really easy to do that, especially if you're doing machine learning, which is what a lot of people are doing. My last job, we did machine learning on DigitalOcean before they had GPUs on their droplets, and it was time consuming without doing it without that kind of acceleration. But it was very, very cheap, and we were able to make a lot of money go, or a little bit of money go really far away as far as your cloud spend. So DevOps does that. I also get the benefit of being able to go contribute to pull requests, because I have been a developer for a really long time as well. Excuse me. I've been a developer for a really long time, so I've got the experience to be able to go help triage pull requests when coworkers are out, or if coworkers are just blocked on something. I get pulled in on a lot of design decisions because I have some architecture history as well in building applications and server infrastructure. So I get pulled in pretty early in a lot of the debugging scenarios where, something isn't working right, and this or this is supposed to be happening, and I get to go in and debug it. Now, the other thing is, I hate being the guy who says I don't know, even if I have to say I don't know right now, but I'm going to go find out. So I get to be kind of an archaeologist in a lot of aspects as well, to be able to go find out why a service fell over, or why an application isn't working. Why is the AWS bill $20,000 this month? Why is GitHub actions not running? Why are the GitLab actions not running? And it's a lot of my expertise falls a little bit higher than some of my coworkers, because most of my coworkers are just developers. I was the actual first DevOps hire in a consultant company that's been around for 12 years. So it's really nice to kind of be able to play this role where I get to wear a lot of hats, and I don't have the same 4 or 5 things that I have to do every single day. I get to go and jump on 5 different clients, 10 different applications that those clients have, and I get to go play in a lot of those different areas. Recently, I've been spending time building cloud CouchDB servers, which has been interesting because I've never dealt with CouchDB, which is just a database option that's out there. So being able to take all of that and bring it back to, what is it I do during the day? It's essentially a lot of everything. And that's what I love, because I'm never working on the same thing. I'm never working on the same PR for weeks on end, or I'm not the same feature. And if that's the kind of person that you enjoy doing that work, that's awesome. You can still have a career in DevOps as well, because there's a lot of features that DevOps people plan, such as cloud migrations. So you have to figure out how to take a Amazon SQL or a Microsoft SQL server that's been running in a basement somewhere for 20 years at a bank, and you have to figure out how to put that in the cloud. And that's not as easy as it sounds, if it sounds easy at all. So that's the kind of thing that I really enjoy, is just tinkering and figuring out the best way to do things, and then automation as well. If you've ever been to a Memphis Give Camp, you've probably met Lance Hilliard. He has a saying that you are what you don't automate. And I hear that every time I have to go do something in manual steps and I can't automate it. I hear Lance saying that to me. It's like, I know I need to automate this, and I know I'll save a lot more time if I automate that. So automation just kind of comes along with DevOps, but a lot of my automation work is essentially trying to find and isolate processes that my team are doing that are cumbersome, or that are manual process. Like right now we have a manual process for one of our mobile apps, and it drives me insane because I'm the one who has to go do the manual steps. And I'm like, I know how to solve this problem. I just need to carve out the time to do it. And this will be so much better of a solution. So that's another part of it, is just being able to figure out what's going wrong and where. So debugging, if you have an inquisitive mind and you you enjoy solving problems and solving complex puzzles, I mean, DevOps is a fantastic area to get into, because that's essentially all we have are puzzles on why isn't the application working? Why is this happening? And it gets really complex the more you get into larger scenarios where you're getting into load balancers across multiple application servers. And then you can add the more complexity onto that by throwing them into different regions and load balancing the traffic across the planet. That was a fun exercise I did a couple of months ago, where we took Couch TV servers and we essentially split them across the country and created a geo fence, and we're able to route traffic between where you were on the country. We routed you to the nearest server. That's a thing that is kind of taken for granted these days, but a lot of smaller shops have never thought about that, or have never had a client need that kind of accessibility to be where one of our clients actually serves remote users all across the continental US. So being able to route them to the fastest server, where primarily our application server is on the West Coast, actually has a lot of benefit for their East Coast customers. So being able to offer that level of service to them is huge for our clients, and then for their clients that they resell to. So it's that kind of tinkering and stuff that I love doing, and that I do a lot of. And then a lot of it is also because I've been doing this for so long, as I have the ability to mentor my other developers and help them in problems where they get stuck, where they're trying to build a feature, or they're trying to solve a problem, or they're just trying to find a bug. A lot of times when the logs can't be found, or we can't track something the right way, or an easy way, they bring me in, and I'm like, all right, let's start adding log statements. We log everything. This is kind of what happens with legacy applications, is you don't always have the best logs. So being able to go and add observability to your old legacy application is huge win for being able to debug it and actually properly see what's going on. Because a lot of times you can only see a part of the picture through the code and reading the code. You can see a better picture watching CI/CD pipelines, watch the application get built, watch the dependencies get built, and see what happens and all that. But a lot of times when it comes down to tracking down the really hard to find bugs, they're somewhere in the operation of the application. And it's almost always a data issue. So many of those is what I've had in the past month and a half, trying to track down some differences between a staging prod and a test environment. It all comes down to data. And if you're not cleaning your data between your different environments, and like taking your prod data and sanitizing it and putting it in your staging environment, and further sanitizing it, that way you're not using real data in prod, or real data in staging, but you're using real-ish. That's one of those things that I help out with, and being able to make sure that we're testing the same kinds of data in those environments, right? If your data is wildly different from your staging and production environments, you're not testing everything that you could be testing. You're not testing a lot of those test cases. So a lot of times it goes back to, how are you writing your tests, and how are you writing your tests to be able to test the data that you have in production as well. So testing is another big part of what I help do, is go help write application tests and make sure we're testing the right things, real things, things that make sense, things that don't contribute to the runtime of the tests if we can help it, or even going so far as to actually breaking up tests that take hours or dozens of minutes to run. Go break those up into smaller chunks. That way the developer that's only changing one thing in one part of the application only has those tests run. That's a higher level of automation, a higher level of complexity than what a lot of small people need just getting out there. But it's good to know those things exist. It's like, how do you scale from having a 500-line code base to a 500,000-line code base? What does the unit test look like? How long do those run? So a lot of what I do is contribute to that as well, and is figure out kind of what's going on. I kind of give my developers a hard time and tell them it's like herding cats, but I kind of say that about anything just because it's a great metaphor. So it's really for anybody who likes solving those problems and likes infrastructure and likes tinkering with Linux or even Windows. I mean, there's a whole ecosystem out there for people who love Windows and want to tinker with Windows. Windows Server is not going anywhere. Microsoft tried to kill Linux. It didn't work. So they've embraced it. If you haven't gotten that memo, it's really great. You can even go work with Linux on Microsoft at Microsoft. It's fantastic. So yeah, and I think what else? Yeah, I mean, I really kind of the takeaways is that I want you to have is, get involved in a networking community and stick with that community. I'm terrible at sticking around with the Code Connector community, but I'm around the Memtech community. So if you're in Memphis, look us up. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. We have a whole community of people that are at different periods in their different careers and different points. Some even have moved away. and being able to kind of still connect with your hometown community or the community, even if you're far away, is huge. So even if you're not in the Memphis area, check out Memtech. We're a great place to kind of come and ask questions, and there are no dumb questions. There are just some questions we will laugh at, which is fair. So, but yeah, we try to be very encouraging. Come check us out. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Fantastic job, Joe. They talked you up beforehand, and you went above their expectations. All right, first question, is that Lawrence, I think? Yep, Lawrence is first. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Yes, that was awesome. Joe, if a software developer, engineer, whatever, just listen to you and they're thinking, I've been doing dev all this time, but that sounds fascinating. Where would they even start?
A lot of it, check out, what is it? The Linux Foundation and the Cloud Native ecosystem. I'm going to Google that just to make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Yeah, the Cloud Native Computing, it's cncf.io. cncf.io is a fantastic place to start. Essentially, what you're going to be after is you want to learn Linux really well. If you're a developer that likes that seems to want to think that this might be something you're interested in, go learn Linux. Go learn Ubuntu, go learn Fedora, and learn it really, really well. Learn it until you hate it, and come back and tell me what you hate about it, because I want to compare notes, because I hate both of them. I hate all Linux, but I'm a seasoned developer. I hate most things, right? But the important part is you have to figure out how to leverage what you use and what is the most useful for the right tool for the job, right? So if you're interested in any of those things, go learn Linux really well. I can't recommend Ubuntu more. Ubuntu or Fedora. Fedora because it gets you into the RPM ecosystem as far as package management, and Ubuntu because Ubuntu is going to be the easiest thing you're going to find support for. By Googling anything and adding Ubuntu, you're going to probably find the answer to your problem. And if you don't, you need to step back because you've done something really, really weird, which I do a lot of. So I've been there.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Matthew, go ahead.
Hey, Joe, thanks for the information. That was great. I've got a few questions here. I also do DevOps, but I'm early in my career. So I'm interested to know what CSPs do you work with typically, and do you have a preference?
I'm going to admit to being lost in acronyms and an acronym soup. Which CSP are you referring to? Which cloud service provider? Oh, cloud service provider. Sorry. Yeah. That's the other fun thing with DevOps is you learn a lot of letters and not very many meanings. So if I was going to host a product tomorrow, I would go with DigitalOcean. And I say that because I am a DevOps nerd. I enjoy getting the servers spun up and then doing all the automation and platform engineering, that sort of thing after the fact. I love doing that. If you want to spin up an app and you don't care about any of that, you just want to get the app running and start making money, go with something like DigitalOcean's app servers, if that makes sense. Do something like Vercel, if that makes sense. Somebody that hosts the application for you. If you have $100 bills to just set on fire, AWS is always a fantastic option. Or if you are a company that needs global scale, AWS is a fantastic option. Azure is another option for setting money on fire as well as global scale. I'm giving Azure and AWS a hard time for being expensive because they are expensive, but what you're paying for is that scale and that level of redundancy. You can get your application to never go offline if you want to pay for it. And you can keep it up there forever if you want to pay for it. If you are just a lone developer where you're shelling out your own money to do this, check out Microsoft Students stuff. See if there's anything that you can get to where you can go play with Azure for free. AWS has a fantastic free tier where you can go play with a lot of AWS services for absolutely free. There are tons of videos out there that you can find that show you how to set up billing limits and billing alarms. Please do that first. That way you don't go and blow up your credit card or your partner's credit card or anybody else's credit card, because it's very easy to do in the cloud world for sure. There's also a lot of other cloud service providers out there. I particularly use one that is called OVH, and OVH gives me a bare metal box, and that is all I want from them. They give me a bare metal box and a network upstream, and I get to go play from there. And a lot of people don't like to do that. A lot of people just want to set up the application and go, or they want to set up GitHub actions to deploy their applications and go. So there's a cloud service provider out there for you, no matter what you want to do, and whatever your budget is as well.
What's your preferred way to manage infrastructure, such as like infrastructure as code?
The one I have the most experience with is Pulumi, because we did that at the startup that I was at, and we used Pulumi because we were already in the Python ecosystem. So Pulumi, having a Python SDK, just made a lot of sense. Now that I'm back in primarily the PHP ecosystem, I would probably have to say either Terraform or CloudFormation, depending on where your business is and where your infrastructure is. Like right now, one of my clients is heavily in AWS, but there's no infrastructure of code except for the little bit I've done myself. Everything was point and clicked. So disaster recovery is a bit of a concern, right? If that goes down, we have to go set all that back up manually. So a big part of my recent tasks at the day job is going back and backing that with CloudFormation templates, just because this customer is never going to go off of AWS. CloudFormation, being an AWS native tool, is the perfectly fine choice. Now, if you were going to run infrastructure in AWS and Azure, CloudFormation is probably not your best place. You probably want to go with Terraform. If you were starting new today, I'd probably go with Terraform, just because Terraform has been around for as long as it has, several years at this point. It's got tons of support, tons of commercial support as well. So it's got adoption in large industries. So you'll be able to become a Terraform expert, and that skill and that effort that you put into doing that will take you to any job that you really want to in any big corporation.
Awesome. Do you manage any of the cloud security posture management? Like Azure has Microsoft Defender for cloud, GCP has the Security Command Center. There's cloud agnostic ones like Prisma.
Now, I don't have any direct experience. A lot of what I've had to do in the past is we just harden the VM images themselves to whatever specific standard we have. Like if we're doing PCIe, there's a specific standard that you harden the VMs to, and it's essentially being able to pass the security audit, where they come in and they scan your network, and if you have an open port that shouldn't be open, or if you have a SQL injection vulnerability in your application, they'll find that and report that to you. So no, I don't have any direct experience with direct tooling. In the companies that I've been a part of that were large enough to need that, that's always been in the different department, the security department.
Got it. Do you have any certifications that you recommend? I know you were talking about Terraform. I do have my Terraform associate, also highly recommend it. It was super easy to get, relatively speaking, right?
Yeah, I don't have any code certifications. I have been really lucky in my career that my experience has carried me everywhere that I've needed to go. At the job that I had before my previous one, I was on the road to doing the AWS Cloud Architecture certification, which was surprisingly easy for me. But as somebody who's done DevOps for a really long time, maybe I'm biased. My thought process on certifications is, if you need to be able to prove to somebody you know a thing and you don't have the job experience to do that, go get certifications. Or if your employer is going to pay for it, go get the certifications. Me, myself, I did not continue doing that certification because I didn't have anybody to pay for it, because my employer doesn't require it. None of our clients require it. And I have enough practical job experience that I don't feel like I need it. Now, if I was just getting started in this industry and I didn't have the on-paper experience I did, certifications are a 1,000% great idea for you to be able to go demonstrate expertise in your area. Some of them are expensive, and you really have, if you're not working in tech yet, if you're trying to make that career transition, it can be really, really expensive. I've been there. I've gone through that, and I've weighed those decisions, and I never went through the certification route, but I don't fault anybody for doing it. And I would say, especially if you don't have the experience and you have the ability to go get these certifications, if they're meaningful, make sure that you're going to go get meaningful ones. Like if you're going to go do a certification for Terraform, go through somebody that is like the Linux Foundation, or if HashiCorp is doing that themselves, go through and get it through the right people, the accredited people, right? Make sure that you're doing that. A lot of times the Linux Foundation will advertise half off certifications, and a lot of times they'll do half off the trainings as well. That is a fantastic resource to get started with learning Linux if you're looking for a starting place.
Got it.
Awesome.
All right.
Well,
And last question.
I'm gonna have to jump in here because we're on a time crunch a little bit here. So we're going to have to close questions there, but if Joe is able to leave contact, maybe he's open to that. I'll leave that completely up to Joe.
Yeah, or feel free to type it in chat and I'll answer it as well.
Awesome.
You can find me on
Awesome.
LinkedIn as well. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for speaking. You're absolutely amazing. Okay, let's see if do we have Will ready? Will, are you going to be ready right now?
I'm good.
Okay, so I'm supposed to introduce Will. Will is a 20-year headhunting vet who's built engineering teams on every stack since VB6. His one-man agency, Dev Grabber, just celebrated its 5-year anniversary. Its focus is curating dev teams that stick together and ship. He works mostly with product startup and consulting companies who loathe general IT recruiters. Will, the floor is yours.
What's up, y'all? Yeah, number one, happy to be connected with Code Connector. This is great. I think it's a really smart idea talking about just other ways to get into the industry. Y'all don't have to start with a coding job. You know, there's a bunch of entry ways into this. So this is good. I don't have a bunch of slides, so I'm just going to talk and make some points. If you do have some questions, please don't wait till the end. Just throw it in here and drop it into chat. Okay. Yeah, my sneakers. I don't have any kids. I got sneakers. That's my wife's side, by the way. So that's how you keep her happy. If 2 boxes come to the door, it's cool. Better than 1 box and having to explain it. So, so my name is Will Kelly. I run Dev Grabber. It's a one-man agency. I want to talk about really the different kind of recruiters that we have. I'm actually on year 20 of doing this, which is kind of crazy when I say that out loud. Okay. Number one, please ask y'all in the beginning of a recruiting call and really try to identify these people a little bit better than some people are doing. This is your career. This is your job. They are actually marching you through. It could be a pretty arduous process. So I'm glad to be doing this to kind of identify the different recruiters, but by all means, you know, have them identify themselves before you get too in the muck with someone that's not going to treat you right or really no good process. Lawrence, thank you so much for the .com. So number one, the obvious is we've got the corporate recruiters. Okay. The corporate recruiters out there are the ones that are representing the actual corporation they work for. So if I work for Google, I'm repping Google. If I work for Dev Grabber, well, that's my agency, bad example. If I work for Microsoft, I'm pimping Microsoft. I'm trying to fill jobs there. Okay. So number one, and everybody understand this, even if you're IMing and you're talking back and forth, having a casual conversation with a corporate recruiter, you are on an interview. So understand that, okay, and handle yourself appropriately. So corporate recruiters are there to fill open jobs. It's a very, very common job, and it's very, very different than the other side of the stack, okay? How you guys kind of look at developers that, I don't want to say just because they're important, but the developers that build line of business products, you know, that aren't for sale, that are more of a cost center than a revenue generator. On the recruiting side, we've got the agency side, okay, versus the corporate side, okay? I'm agency side. I've always been agency side except for a few different instances. And agency side, we are very much doing this for fees, all right? It is commission related. And if you're an agency recruiter, you're doing this because you have the brain of a 12-year-old, hence recruiting, and you're actually really looking to, you know, generate some income. Okay. There's 2 different kinds. Number one, and this is good to know, this is why I want y'all identifying us early on in the phone call. Number one, you've got the contingency recruiters. Okay. A contingency recruiter does not make a fee and they don't get paid until your ass is in that seat and they filled the job. Okay. If you're ever wondering, why do you guys freaking spam so many resumes? Okay. Why, if you're a hiring manager on this phone call, if you're like, geez, you know, how come I ask for a few engineers and I get 60 that are just qualified by the keyword? That's why. Okay. So contingency recruiters are going to do, you know, very little work to get paid, knowing that they only get paid on placement. Okay. Then you've got where I sit, and that's retained recruiting. Okay. Basically, when you look at the fees that I charge, you have to pay me about a third of my fee for me to even get started on my job. Just to let you guys in behind the curtain, I charge 16 to 24K per placement. I'm only mostly work with product consulting and startup companies, ironically enough, that really loathe recruiters, all right, and have very, very low trust. Or my other service offering is I embed my little ass in with a struggling team, all right, or a company that does not have a great talent act team, okay? Don't trip, y'all. This is a sales job, okay? You really need to be able to yap, and you need to be able to make an impact, and you need to be able to navigate people, okay? So it's exciting. The reason why I've got some good value is thanks, Lawrence. Yeah, starting now, right? You know, and the reason why I've got good value, why I'm excited about what I do every day is, number one, I get to talk to you guys. And really, number two, I don't have STEM skills. All right. I tried to code HTML and it whooped my ass. All right. So I can't do what y'all do. All right. But there are companies that absolutely depend on me for y'all, you know, Joseph, and that next iteration of whatever they're building. Okay. So yeah, and guys, if you have questions about anything, let's fire it off. So let's get into really recruiting skill set, okay? Because y'all, no one seeks out recruiting, okay? I'm telling you right now, you end up in recruiting in some capacity. One of my first jobs, I actually had a manager that was originally from Russia, and he was famous for saying, "You don't find recruiting, recruiting finds you." It's true. Like, you know, do a little stand-up bit about this. I'm like, are you qualified to be a recruiter? Well, number one, let me ask you, okay? Have you failed in 3 different industries? Okay. Do you have a substance abuse problem? I'm going to need a major and a minor, okay? Can you create very, very personal relationships and then abandon them immediately? You might be a good recruiter. But seriously, all jokes aside, if you're thinking, can I do it? We have a really grinded out job. It is difficult. We're working with account managers and we're working with salespeople that aren't taking good software recs. All right. We're working with hiring managers that don't know how to hire properly. All right. My main source of value to y'all is I navigate that. Okay. One of the things that is one of probably the main reasons why I suggest getting to know a few agency folks is, you know, we're headhunters. All right. I'm not just pushing paper. I have a 45-minute to 60-minute Teams or Zoom or whatever with every single engineer that I send. Okay. How are we doing on time, Joseph?
You're doing good.
Awesome.
I'm trying to get, I'll get a count and post it in the chat here in a second.
Yeah. No worries. Does anybody have any questions so far? Like, especially if there's anybody out there that are like, hey, seriously, do I have what it takes to be a recruiter? What would that look like starting out? Because the weird thing is the background for what we do. Like, honestly, I've hired a lot of recruiters. I like ex-servers, bartenders, and I like flight attendants that are just done with the airline industry. They make wonderful recruiters. So does anybody, number one, just have any questions about the industry or about like how you would get into it or about why you would want to as a software engineer?
Or how about a different course?
Yeah.
What, as a developer, what's something, well, me as a developer, what's something that you see in other recruiters that is a major red flag?
Oh, that's a good question. Number one, they don't know anything about the job. All right. They just can't tell you basic information about the job. Okay. And you need to kick the tires there because you might be working with like some 4th level recruiter that's 4 layers removed from the actual hiring manager that's on a frigging barge in the middle of the damn Caspian Sea. Okay. You never know. So like, that's one of the first things, Corey, is just like, tell me about the job. Tell me about the hiring manager. All right. That's one of the things that I like have the luxury of doing. Hey, Corey, let me tell you about this person that you're working with. You're going to love Joseph. Okay. Really asking about their relationship with the client. Always, y'all, please, for the love of God, ask if they've got a track record of success. Okay. Ask if they have any specialization. People work with me, number one, because I'm an effing bully on y'all's behalf. Okay. I've been building on every stack ever. I get hired as a consultant to fix process. So I'm going to represent you hardcore. Like I have been fired and walked off sites because I pushed too hard for candidates. All right. So really work with someone that's got like some sort of specialty. All right. General IT. What the hell is that? IT is something my dad used to do. Okay. And I'm freaking 50 years old. All right. You want to work with people that are in the zone in some sort of a domain that you're working in. Okay. And it doesn't just have to be coding. Like I find product managers all the time. I'm working with just, hey, we're client facing business functional people that prescribe people like Corey and Lawrence and Joseph. All right. But it's good to have, somebody that, like, again, I can't code, but I know what you guys do inside now. All right. I really do. Did that answer your question, Corey? Okay. Anybody got anything else? All right. So I got a few minutes. Want to close out just on this because I do a lot of coaching. And one of the things that I'm seeing as far as some of the gaps are, and this will be brief, is that it's just not 2 or 3 years ago as far as like what's working for interviews. Okay. I talked to a lot of people that do get interviews and they're not getting offers. And really it's just, y'all, it's the engagement factor that you've got to just completely ratchet up. If you follow Taylor Desson or like any of the Torque people, if you follow Rando Recruiter, who's got 1 million followers, look, it really knows the market. If you follow anybody like me, all right, they're going to tell you that 3 years ago, you could dip your pinky toe into the pond. You could just be semi-likable in an interview, answer all the questions correctly, and you can get a base salary 20% over that. Those days are gone. All right. So a lot of the time it's not, hey, why didn't I get the job? All right. Did they find someone better? Much of the time, I'm telling y'all, it's nobody that was better. All right. It was someone that either like legitimately wanted it more, or they at least demonstrated they wanted it more. Okay. So you've got to be present. As my wife says, you've got to be in the moment. All right. You've got to be responsive. And I mean energy and body language. Again, not to be redundant. It's not just answering questions correctly. All right. And for the love of everything that's holy, you want to do some research. All right. And you want to learn about Corey McCarty, and you want to find a good few professional compliments to really get that started. The interview is a giant rock. It takes some inertia. And if you get that rock rolling on minute 25 of a 30-minute interview, you're already cooked. Anything else, y'all, especially an interview prep?
You are absolutely amazing, Will.
Thanks. This was great. I'd love to do more of these. And again, guys, reach out to me over LinkedIn, please, at any time, especially if you're like, hey, Will, is this company legit? Or you find someone that I'm connected to. People love when guys like me come and say, hey, this is a free one. This is someone that I met in my network. That'll open some doors. And please don't squander the interviews that you work so hard to get. If you're like, Will, I just need a rizz up. I need you to tell me I'm effing awesome. And just help me overcome these few objections. Let's do it. Reach out to me over LinkedIn. I would love to help. This is how I serve.
Awesome. Thank you again. And thanks everybody for being here. But I'm going to pose a question. I don't necessarily need an answer, but I do wonder if you look at recruiting fees by the shoes you could buy with each placement.
I got to pay the bills, but honestly, it's funny because I know some people were like, oh, how, hey, $16K. That's a pretty low fee for like principal staff engineers. You'd be surprised at the ridiculous abstrosities that they have up there. And I would much rather work with a company that's actually legit trying to find a Joseph or a JC or a Lawrence, than some VMS pipeline that's just, don't even get me started. That'd be another 20 minutes.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thanks, man.
Okay, next up, we have Coriano Harris. He wears a lot of hats, currently a full stack product technologist. Right now, he's splitting his time between the investment world and the Memphis mayor's office, helping both build tech that solves pain points. What makes Coriano tick isn't just the code, it's creativity, the problem solving, the listening, the designing, and researching that sparks new ideas. He's at his best when he's blending design and engineering to make everyday experiences just a little better, for the people who use them. Coriano, the floor is yours.
Sounds good. Thank you. Having a little technical with my video camera, so apologize for that. But yeah, I'm excited. Today, I'm going to talk about a really fun topic that I implement in a lot of the work that I do on a daily basis. And so I've been able to kind of look at this from a UX UI perspective and seeing how can I use these concepts into like this effective practice. And so I'm really excited about what I'm going to talk about today. And let me share my screen. And whoops, hold on one second. Let's grab that and share. Perfect. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen. We good to go? Perfect.
Looks good.
So, I'm not familiar how many people are familiar with UX and UI is, but I'll briefly say that UX is user experience, UI is user interface. UX gets more with finding out what the user's needs, their pain points, the problem, coming up with the hotness of what we want to try to solve for the user. And UI is about taking that really helpful data or information and building out the UI, or like the GUI, or the in sense information architecture. How do we place these various components on the page to help the user to solve the issue they're trying to solve, well, to be able to solve an issue as quickly as possible. Once again, just mention a full stack product technologist. My job is really trying to not only tell that story, but figure out ways to how to effectively implement those stories and get it in the hands of users so that that can be impactful for them. So, whoops, let's see my slide, if it moves. Okay, so next, let's talk about the power of like storytelling. So storytelling is so hugely effective. It's been a awesome skill and tool that's been used for generations. And so we know that stories can build an emotional connection. They can allow users to picture things that they weren't able to see initially. It allows them to be able to be motivated to move forward because this story had some kind of effect on them inside. And so with UX and UI, where the story comes in is when it comes to that user flow. So when we're taking a task and going through the journey, user journey, that's where we can tell this impactful stories. Users don't look at applications by features. They don't care about UI patterns. What they care about is, how does this app make me feel, and can I complete my task as quickly as possible? So with the story, we know there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. And so in this case, setting the expectation. So that first initial slide, or first initial mock-up, or first initial screen is where we start building the expectation. They look at that and go, okay, this is what the journey is going to start. I'm going to start doing this. And then the middle is where you're starting to kind of give them that smooth guide. So it's like, okay, you're here, you started the process, now you're moving to the next phase. How can we make that as smooth as possible so you feel confident to kind of move to the ending of the story, where that confirmation comes in, where it's like success, oh, an achievement. And so breaking the UI works, the UX UI user flow through that is just really impactful, because it's taking yourself out of as a coder. So you're not looking at code, you're not looking at matrix, you're not looking at components, you're not looking at color theory. What you're focusing on is, does this tell the story that's going to help my user solve the problem? Or more importantly, does it tell the story that our company wants to communicate to our users as well? So just to go back here, this is a little flow. We're going to break this down into like storytelling. So we'll break this down where we have screens that'll be associated with the beginning, the middle, and the end. So now we're talking about the beginning, setting the stage. Let me know if hopefully everybody can see the content. But as you look at this home screen, so when you go to this home screen, you've got all this information here. You've got icons, you've got text indicating the date. You're saying this welcome. So right off the bat, we're sending this warm welcome to Steve. We're giving him the dates, so some information, and then we're giving him the options like, hey, I'm glad you're here. How can we help you? We are not going to make the decision on what we're going to help you. We're going to allow you to do that. And so that home page is where we initiate that journey. So he knows like, okay, home page, I'm going to click on something that's going to take me somewhere so that I can do something else. And so we look at the second screen, and the second screen is kind of the filter, refine, and that's where it's listing like the classes out. So it's like that guide of choices. So he clicks on the weights icon, which takes him to the weights or workout class that was focusing on strength page. And now he's starting to make that decision or go deeper into it to see like, what class do I really connect with? What class is going that I want to take or motivates me to move forward? And then lastly, you have like proceed to those details. So by him clicking on the particular card, that's now signaling that there's a progression to the story. Now we're kind of moving from the beginning and kind of getting more towards the middle. And so now as we move towards the middle, we're now on the class details. And so here, class detail is giving them more information. So now we're kind of in that middle of that story now. So now they're getting the actual information for the class that they've chosen. So now they can hear, they can evaluate, they can look at it, they can make sure this is for me. If not, they do have the option to go back to the beginning of the story and start that whole process again, which could be the same story again, or possibly could be a new story. And then you see the by class button, which is that call to action, right? So that almost like the arc of the story, and that button here. So now you're going, okay, I see the details. I'm happy with this. I want to work with this coach. I'm okay with the cost. What's the next step? And so the next step is to click that button. And so that button now takes them to the checkout page where they get to revalidate the information to make sure. And they're like, yes, I confirm this is what I want to do. I've added my cards. And so now they can go through the payment process. And so as they move the story, they know like, okay, the next step or the end of the story is going to be where there's a checkout. And so we move to the end of the stage where we're at that checkout. And so the end of the story in this story is the successful confirmation message, right? They're getting the confirmation, they're getting the details, they have this. But if you look at it too, there's an add to your calendar button. What this does is extends the story. So if you didn't have that, most likely the user would go ahead and leave the application because it's confirmed, it's done, it's initial or the task that I wanted to task, but now you're giving it another option to start a new story. And so these are powerful ways to kind of keep the user engaged on your application as they complete certain task. And once again, you're trying to build that emotional connection, accomplishment, reassurance, continuation. And so the small things that you can indicate that the story is progressing in the right direction. It's progressing from the beginning. It's progressing from the middle. It's getting to the climax. It's getting to the end of the story. The more delight your users will be, and the more they're happy of you because they're guiding through the process. They're getting this guidance, and they're getting reassurance because they're completing things to be able to move forward. And so now I kind of want to talk about storytelling from collaboration across teams. And so, we have our researchers, we have our stakeholders, we have our designers, and we all can tell a story to each other to kind of help us as we build this product for users. One, the story will help us to connect with each other, but it also helps us to kind of make sure that we are seeing things from a common space. Researchers, they think differently than stakeholders, or designers or engineers, and vice versa. So having this place where you come in and you remove kind of the coding and the color theory and the funding and the analytics to go, let's just tell this story, is a really good way to kind of get the team synced in this kind of unity. And so for that, there's kind of the process here where you think of designers like a narrative architects, right? They create the flow, the rhythm, right? They build it so the user has something that they can feel, interact with. You know, the engineers or the mechanics, that they're building that product. And then so that the user can then interact. Designers are creating that flow. Engineers are actually building that product. And you got your stakeholders, which are giving that direction and support for that too with that story. So they are given a space for that story to be created. They are providing the funding and tools so that story can be created. And then lastly, now you got the researchers who are telling us how we want to tell the story. How do we want to start the beginning? How do we want to move in the middle? How do we want to have the arc? How do we want to have the closing? And so, once again, by thinking and from the perspective of building a story, you're able to really have this unified perspective that allows you to kind of push away our own individual skills or the things that we need for those particular roles and really come together instead of trying to get others to kind of understand your perspective. I'm an engineer, you might talk about some coding. Designer, you might talk about information architecture, you might talk about stakeholder, could talk about funding, but do these other roles really engage? Do they really understand? Are they really on board? Do they really support that? Are they following along with you? And so telling a story, it helps out that. And so the takeaway here, I really just want to go through a simple workflow of how you can possibly take a user experience and break it up into stories, because users don't just see screens. We see screens because we build those, but users don't just see screens. They see a task. They see a story. They see, how does this make me feel as I navigate through this particular experience? And then the other thing is storytelling. It's a mindset. It helps to improve product decisions because you're moving from your basic core, the core things that you have to do for your role, to more of a unified, because it's no longer about code. It's no longer about designing. It's no longer about analytics. It's no longer, once again, about funding or setting goals. It's about, do I understand this current story? Do you understand this current story? Is this story what we want to tell or what we want to try to tell our users? So last but not least, just, at the end, it's like, what story are you telling? When you look at your design projects, when you look at your data, your dashboards, when you look at your code, what story are you telling? And how are you telling that story for whoever is going to be using that product or consuming that or trying to understand what you've created? So that's my talk today. It's really, just like I said, about seeing how we can move things to unified, more collaborative, and how we can tell stories with the things that we've created for others.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coriano. We have any questions for Coriano? We got about 4 minutes. We can get some questions. Cool. Zion, go ahead.
Yeah, great presentation, Coriano. I was just wondering, what's the market demand for these UX, UI positions?
Hold on 1 second. I apologize. I can hear you better now. I apologize.
What's the market demand for the UX, UI positions in this upcoming couple months?
Market demand? Yeah, that's a tough question, because it definitely depends on the industry. It depends on where you're currently located. But one thing I think is really great for UX and UI is you are focusing on your users and how they feel. How do I solve a problem and make the user feel competent, make the user feel comfortable to come back and use the product, or more importantly, how do I help the user get a win, at the end of the day? And so those are skills that are still highly in demand. As we build more and have other tools that can take care of some of our workflows, it comes that skill of being able to break down how someone is going to use your product, how your brand's going to impact them, and how can I get this user to want to come back. And you do that by being able to let them complete their task as quickly as possible, and let them also feel happy about going through that path. So a good example would be there's Xfinity has on their app, there's a page where there's some information that you get if you're like, they can't find anything, but they have a button that says, got it. Now, their interpretation is not for that to be negative, but that can come out kind of aggressive to someone. So it's like, hey, you can't have that. You got it, And so those are things that you have to be aware of, because what story is that telling you right now? That story is telling you, to some users, if it's negative, is like, okay, I guess I was supposed to get this, so now I feel a negative experience.
Yeah,
Even
I
though
see what
that's
you're
not, even though it's not their intention. But to answer your question, there's definitely still a huge market. The working on sentiment, understanding nonverbal cues, understanding how to ask the right questions, like how do you go from surface questions to deeper questions? So you really get at the core. And then sometimes users don't even know their issue. They don't know how to ask these questions. So that's another really powerful skill, if you're able to guide users to a deeper perspective and then they go, you know what, I never thought about that, but you know what, that is a problem that I have. And now you've got them because you've created that kind of a personal connection, but then is an emotional connection and kind of moving forward. So, but I want to say there's definitely a demand for it. I think it will come down to how do you effectively get the answers that you need to make a decision whether to move forward or to kind of move on to pivot to something else. But if you can tell a story, you can bring it's a way for you to be able to bring everybody along, because you're moving all the technical stuff and you're just you're going, how can we start at A? Can we move to B? Can we move to C? Move to D. How did that make you feel? Oh, that actually made me feel really good, positive. Oh, that was C was a little bit confusing. Great. Now we can have that conversation, but now you're moving away from all of like the technical skills to just going, how does this make me feel? And at the end of the day, that's what users care about. It's like, can your product make me feel? How does your product make me feel?
Okay. So it's like an entry level professional, like trying to break into the industry. Would you demonstrate that in your portfolio?
You can, it's more about how you communicate.
Okay.
So write blogs, communicate about that, tell that story.
For sure.
If you look at some of the blogs that I write it more in a story kind of a process. One thing that I do for me is my readmes. So I'm not sure if you do any coding and stuff, but my readmes are another user experience. I have a persona in there. I have different things, and I go, okay, this particular feature is going to solve this use case.
Is that a website? README?
That's code. So if you're not in development, don't worry about that. But from a UX perspective, being able to communicate that story, because that story is what stakeholders. And the other thing about UX and UI, we really push this whole thing that it's all about users. And that is true. We focus on users, but we have another target or audience that we have to be sensitive to, and we have to care for, and that's our stakeholders. Because if we don't get the stakeholders aboard, you don't get to solve the problem for the user. if the stakeholder doesn't give you the green light to take these resources to go and find this or do that. So for me, it's with UX, we have two users to satisfy, and we're trying to find this amazing way to kind of build it into harmony. But we have the user and we have the stakeholder, and our goal is how do we generate ROI and how do we make the user happy that they continue to use our product at the end of the day. But for just networking, coming to events like this is great. We have there's Slack channels. There's really great resources out there. My slide here, that's my website right there. Reach out, send me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn, ask questions. So yeah, that's the way. But at the end of the day, it's the more that you can tell a story and the more you can tell the why, the more powerful you, because it's getting to that point where you're like, I need to tell the why, because it's so collaborative now that you've got to be able to communicate like why you chose this design pattern over that. How is this design pattern going to increase revenue or reduce rage clicking or stuff like that, or abandonment on a page?
Like storytelling with the data.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Appreciate
Storytelling with the data. Yeah.
Appreciate you, Coriano.
Oh, you're welcome.
Like I said, I hate to interrupt. And Coriano, absolutely great, and Zion, great questions. But we do have two more speakers to get kind of pushed through here at the end here.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Thanks again, Coriano. All right, next up is Steve Hallman, an enterprise agile coach. Steve helps software organizations work smarter, not harder, showing teams how to deliver value faster, improve quality, and actually enjoy the process. He's guided global divisions of up to 90 teams, taught everyone from new developers to executives, and has even led award-winning DevOps teams that went from months-long releases to deploying safely every single day. Steve brings together operations management, systems thinking, and hands-on coaching to help people see that great software isn't just about code. It's about how people, teams, and ideas come together to create value. Steve, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. Audio check, am I good? All right, perfect. And my screen hopefully is visible. All right, good deal. So feel free to have your mics on. I get weird if I can't hear people breathing or something. It helps me immensely to know that people are actually there and listening. I might throw a joke out occasionally. So I have been many things, and my career has taken sort of a circuitous path, but primarily my late career has been as a Scrum Master and Agile coach. And so I'll talk a little bit about those two things. If you'll forgive me, as Doc Brown said, forgive the crudity of the model. I didn't have time to build it to scale or to paint it. I threw this together from 2 or 3 different slide decks that I have. So they look a little different in style. So just forgive the fact that they're a little out of whack. So a little bit about me. I have done work for Nucor Steel, for Chick-fil-A, Southern Company, Humana. Probably one of the most interesting was Walt Disney Attractions Technology. I'll show you a little bit about what that looks like there. And on a personal level, I very occasionally blog at the Agile Couch. So you're welcome to go check that out. Recently, last month, I was speaking at Sloss Tech here in Birmingham about kind of a new way that I've been working on. It's actually a multi-year project I've been working on to kind of figure out what era or what year is your software organization in? Like, are you practicing 2003 era technology or practices, and how can you get caught up? I've been on the Mob Mentality podcast, if any of you are mob programming advocates or follow those guys, and I co-organize Agile Birmingham. I don't know if you're familiar with Birmingham, but there's Vulcan, our cast iron statue with his expo marker and some post-it notes on the wall there. So if you don't know enough about how software gets made yet, and you're getting started in the industry, you might ask yourself, what in the world is Scrum? It sounds like something I would scrape off my shoe. And what is waterfall, agile, what do all those things mean? So the term waterfall is something that sort of came along as people started to change from traditional project management to more agile ways of working. And it was based on this concept that the Gantt chart, which has been around since like World War One, possibly earlier, I think, the idea was that in old project management, every decision essentially rolled downhill, and you could not back up and change your mind at points along the project. So one of the primary things that we're looking for in what we call agile development is to get out of that mindset, and rather than the top section there where we know exactly what we're going to build, we're just going to do little pieces of it, and then the user's only satisfied and happy at the very last day of the project. What we're going to try to do is build something that's useful, even if it's small. We use the phrase full stack. We say full stack for now, right? It doesn't have to have every single thing that you might want in it. It might be lacking security. It might be lacking two-factor authentication. It might be lacking a lot of things, but can you string up a hello world page, get that page up somewhere, get the DevOps in place, get the database in place, get those things up so that somebody can see it immediately, like in the first week, and then you can make it more robust as you go. It's the surest way to know that you're going to deliver something on time is if you're able to deliver something every single day, and every single day it gets a little better. With traditional project management, if you're 90% done and it's the last day, you're not done. It's either there or it's not there. With agile software development, if you're 90% done, you can launch a thing on the day that it's due, and it may not have every bell and whistle in it, but those are things that you can add next week or next month. You see it all the time on your phone, right? You'll see basic apps come out, and then they'll make them more robust over time. So most software teams at this point are some type of agile software development. The largest framework there would probably be Scrum practitioners, hence the title Scrum Master. Other tools, other methods, Kanban and things like that, some of these overlap, and some people do, sort of combinations of some of these things. But Scrum is probably the most common framework that most teams out there are using. The general idea in Scrum or Agile development is that you usually have 3 roles and a few events. In those 3 roles, from a Scrum perspective, we just talk about the product owner who decides on what it is we're going to build, the Scrum Master who essentially makes sure that this entire process is being run the correct way according to the Scrum framework, and developers. And by developers, that's a single role. So that could be anybody from database architect to a front-end designer, back-end designer, an engineer, systems engineer. You could be writing documentation, you could be testing, QA. Any of those things are considered a developer role within the Scrum framework, because it's anybody that's putting creative content into creating something that's going to generate revenue for the company. So we have these various events, we have the roles. The nice thing is the roles are very well defined, the events are very well defined, so responsibility for each thing is understood. You know what you're trying to accomplish. There are a lot of teams. Jeff Sutherland, the guy who invented Scrum, said that recently this year, he said, I go all around the world and I visit all these teams, and I would estimate that 63% or more of teams that call themselves Scrum teams really aren't getting the benefits of Scrum. And I've seen plenty of that in my career. Very often teams get stuck almost like arguing about getting their foot on first base, and because they don't ever get established there, they can't move on to the next step and the next step and the next step. So if you just know those basics of Scrum that I showed, there's actually what they call pattern languages. There's 2 whole pattern languages, one about the product organization itself and one about the value stream and how you create things. Those pattern languages have about 89 patterns in them. And if you get the basics of Scrum down, then you can go to these pattern languages and find out, where do we have a problem? What's not working for us? How are we held back? You can find out where you are in this maze and back up and say, okay, what's the last step that we got right? Now, how do we move forward? Which one of these branches should we follow? And that is really where the mastery in Scrum Master comes from, is the idea your Scrum Master should be somebody who knows the framework backwards and forwards. They can tell you what those roles are, who is accountable for what the events are supposed to look like, and what to do when you run into various types of issues that are common in software. A lot of the things that I deal with are companies and teams that are overloaded with people, and yet they feel like they don't have enough resources. Very frequently, they are in a pattern where the only way that they know how to get better is to work harder or work more hours or yell at people to work faster. None of that stuff works. So it's tricky. Sometimes it's trying to convince them it's worth putting the cart up on blocks long enough to change out the square wheels for the round wheels, because then you're always going to be faster going forward. A lot of it is about efficiency, but it's not so simple to just say like, oh, let's make things more efficient. There's actually many different types of efficiency. I won't go into them now, but I can describe a good 8 different measures of efficiency, and some of them are trade-offs to each other. So you can't be efficient at throughput and also have high resource efficiency. And one of the most common things that happens in software teams is that they're trying to maximize resource efficiency, trying to make sure that every person is busy with some piece of software all the time. That's actually one of the slowest ways to get software to move through your system. So spend a lot of time trying to talk people out of that. A lot of it is taking something that exists and maybe people don't recognize as data and turning it into data, being able to show them what information they already have in front of them that they may not recognize. It's the ability to know, I can give you a prediction right now. This is a good example. What AI is about to do is create a massive explosion in technical debt that's going to take 5 to 10 years to sort out. Developer salaries are going to drop in the next 2 or 3 years, and then they're going to explode as developers are hired to come back in and fix all of the code that AI created that created massive technical debt. Do I know that because I'm an expert in AI? No, I know it from first principles. There's basic things about the way systems work, the way software works, the way different types of operating environments work, that give us the ability to predict what kinds of things are going to happen in the industry. I've never met a team who feels like they're slow or feels like they're behind time, and their problem was actually the speed of creating the software. I've never seen it, ever, a single time. Making the code is not the problem. It's all of the other work that you find your calendar looking like Swiss cheese. You're filled with meetings doing things that aren't generating revenue for the company. So a lot of what I do is sort of rat catcher, tracing those things down and sorting them out. The idea with Scrum teams is they should be self-organizing. It's not really a management-based system. It's not this person gives orders to these 5 people and each of them give orders to these 5 people. A team should be able to work together. As I said, there's 3 roles there, so you're never really sure who to blame. That works out nicely. Kidding there, of course. As I said, those accountabilities for what those roles should do is very well defined. And as I mentioned, a developer is anyone on the team that collaboratively puts in creative work to create something that's revenue generating. The Scrum Master is really sort of the coach, the play caller, or she is held accountable for the effectiveness of the team. If the team is not delivering, that is the Scrum Master's responsibility to understand why and to fix it. The product owner's job, as I said, is usually talking to 50 million people that all want 50 million different things from the software and trying to figure out how do I satisfy the most people with the resources that we have available to us. One of the things that I do is help people with things like their reports, metrics, things like that, understanding what they're looking at. So if you have a burn down chart and your burn down chart looks like a camel, or you have a burn down chart and your burn down chart looks like an elephant, or you have a burn down chart and it looks like a big fat chonky boy, I know why, and I can tell you why, and I can show you what each of those shapes means, what you can learn from it, and what will make your team better off. I can show you exercises. I can do things like this in a retrospective where it becomes very clear when you teach people by an exercise. Trying to do 8 pieces of software with 8 different developers, each doing one thing, is the slowest possible way to get 8 pieces of software done. Focusing on one thing at a time, you can complete 8 pieces of software in the time that one piece of software would have taken in the previous system. I can prove it to you. It's mathematical, it's intractable, you can't argue with it. It's based on something called Little's Law. If you'd like to do this as an exercise sometime, give me a call. I'll call in with your team. This stuff really works when you apply it. This is a team that I worked with. Unfortunately, I used to have like a 2-year view of this, and I cannot find that picture anymore. That part that you see under the braces there is the initial few months that I began working with the team. Once I did that exercise that I just showed you with their manager, who sort of gave up his skepticism and said, okay, let's go in, I'm all in. What do we do? This team 16x'd their productive throughput, literally 1,600% higher throughput than they had for the past 2 years. They were supposed to be serving 4 customers, internal departments. They were barely keeping up with 1. We did this. We actually went to those 4 managers, made them do that same exercise, and said, do you trust us now to do one thing at a time? They did. It actually allowed that team to serve all 4 of those customers and get them solutions regularly. I mentioned Disney Attractions technology. I worked on what we call a platform agnostic cloud data lake, which is no fun to say 3 times fast. If you're curious, these are what the walls look like inside the Disney Attractions technology building. It's pretty cool, full-size Star Wars murals everywhere you look. That was a project that took about 14 months to the point that I got there. They were expecting it to take another 14 months, which is why they called me. We launched the platform in a month. And that was due to putting together a different type of team technology, team topology. This is the way, there we go. At Humana, a lot of what I do really gets dictated by the needs of the specific organization. In this case, I spent a lot of time with our DevOps engineer. We built a different DevOps platform. Humana had 315 development teams. All of their releases happened either 11 p.m. at night or 2 a.m. in the morning. We were the first team in the company's history to be able to release to production during the business day at the push of a button. We had 0 rollbacks, 0 defects. That team's average cycle time, the time it takes an average item to get through the team's production process, dropped from 116 days down to 2.1 days in less than a year. As part of that pipeline, they won a Debbie's Award in 2024 for some of that work that I contributed to. I'm probably running a little long on time, and I want to give people time for questions and things. As a Scrum Master, you're generally focusing on the team, helping other people understand their roles, understand the artifacts that you use. How does your board look? Can you help your product owner? Can you help them find better ways to organize the backlog? Can you plan new exercises for the retrospective coming up, things like that? As an Agile coach, you sort of go up a level. So at the moment, I'm working with 12 teams. That is part of a 60-team division. And within those 12 teams, I'm sort of reteaching them Scrum from scratch. We're going to start over with some training coming up. I'm facilitating One of those teams getting started with mob programming. They're about to start that. They just finished their release. Now they've got a little time to breathe. So I'm going to take them through a 2 or 3 day sort of training wheels process for how to get started doing mob programming with your team. Do a lot of mentoring, a lot of troubleshooting Jira, showing people statistics, digging up statistics that don't exist, finding them, making them, creating them, researching best practices, modern practices, things like that. I think I'll stop talking at this point and just let people dig in and ask questions.
And I'll just give you a heads up. We'll at least get one question in, but we're getting close here on time. So we still got one more speaker. So Coriano's got a question here.
Yeah, just quickly, thanks again, Steve. I appreciate this. How can you talk a little bit about your techniques or strategies to get buy-in for like the mobbing and those
Yeah, that is such a superb question, because honestly, that is the hardest thing. My standard joke is people hire me because there's blood on the floor. You know, you don't get to meet me unless there's something wrong with what's going on where you're at, right? And so I come in because they're an emergency room with blood on the floor, and then they want to pay me a lot of money to argue with me for a good 6 months. So the best way that I know is you have to move at the pace of the team and the people in the team. You have to figure out what's the most important thing that's holding them back. You have to be laser focused on that. And then today is a great example. Today I spent my time doing nothing Scrum or Agile related. I helped someone figure out how he's going to communicate to these 60 different teams, and I helped him look up who owns each piece of software out of, you know, a bunch of things, because that's what he needed. And I helped him set up some Teams groups and build a spreadsheet that's like a phone book of who owns what. And that buys me some credibility, that buys me some credence, so that someone is a little more likely to listen to me next time I offer something. So I guess that's what I would say: help people in any way that you possibly can, that you think helps, and try to be laser focused on what the number one problem is, and then try to find ways to tie those two things together.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. That's it. I put in the comments there that I'd like to just keep you talking because I want to hear more.
Sure. I definitely did not want to bump Corey.
Oh, that's all right. Corey will survive. But definitely thanks again for doing this.
Always a pleasure to hear all of our speakers. I don't want to single out Steve. I don't know. Well, I'm not supposed to talk yet. I'll let Joseph go ahead. Take his reins.
That's all right. Corey can't help it. But Steve, just to give you a heads up, you're still sharing your screen.
Yeah, I can turn it off if you need. If you want more
worries.
questions, or move on to Corey or whatever.
So for now, we'll move on to Corey. And if we have any questions, if anybody could drop them in the chat for Steve, and then if you could definitely leave some contacts, so maybe people could reach out if you're comfortable with that, of course. All right. Next up is Corey McCarty, and he's our last speaker for the night. He is a lead full stack developer that enjoys back-end work, automating boring stuff, and professional development. He's been a developer for 10 years and mentors his 5 kids and a handful of software developers. Corey, the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks everybody. Well, in chat, maybe everybody doesn't know what a software developer does, but there's lots of code writing. I actually wanted to take a minute and look a little bit at not just the actual coding, the things that are really going to flush everything out. So as a software developer, there's several factors that are going to have a huge impact on your day-to-day life. So one is going to be your field of focus, whether you're in the front end, back end, CI/CD, database, something platform specific. There's people working in Salesforce only, Shopify, WordPress. There's so many niches that you can be in that'll have, huge difference in the actual problems you're solving. So another major factor is going to be coming in with the size of your company and your team. I personally work for a company around 50 people total with a team of 4 developers, counting myself. Substantially small upstart type headcount allows me to have much faster and more freestyle approach to just a ton of things. I've worked in larger companies like FedEx before. Things were substantially different. The teams were a lot more isolated and focused on single application and just very rigidly defined things that came in. So another major factor is going to be the intake and delivery process that you have. In the most ideal scenarios, you'd have a seasoned product owner that understands how developers work, breaks down tasks in small pieces, has a clear definition of done. Other times you wind up fighting to overcome one or more of those things by trying to get things broken down into smaller deliverable chunks, fix broken expectations, or adjust the work to the expectations, or fighting to figure out what actually determines that you've been successful. Problem with this is that you'll most likely not understand why or how to do many of these things until you've seen how wrong things can go by not doing them. And hopefully you don't reach the point of needing Steve to come in and fix it. Although he'd be great at whatever team. So after you've gone through getting your tasks, getting them defined well, and attending any mandatory meetings, you'll get to work on some code. At some point during that process, you're going to smack headlong into a problem that you don't understand. And much of the time, you might not even know what to search for or how to find the answer. All of this is going to come with time. So quick day in the life. Every day, 9 a.m., I've got daily Scrum. 9:30, I've got a rotating specialized follow-up meeting with various different teams. Somewhere around 11:30, I'm going to have a one-on-one meeting do lunch 12 to 1, come back at 1:30. I do a quick sync with my dev team. Around 2 o'clock, this is my literal today. 2 o'clock, have a solutions call with the vendor. 2:30, have a business call about integrating data from one of our companies that we've acquired. And at 3:30, dig into tech backlog grooming with one of our departments. So all the work that you've got in a day, it's going to come down to obviously solutions. There's going to be just problem discussions and requirement elicitations. You're going to have to figure out what people are asking for and what they really want. There's going to be so many different things to work on. Whether you focus on one or more, you're going to have databases, build pipelines, AWS deployments, front end, back end, Lambdas, integrations of outside systems. If you're lucky, you'll have teams for each of these different things. Or if you're in a tiny team like me, you'll wind up doing all of it. Not nearly as well as having Joe or somebody else that is able to become intimately aware of all of the nuances of their specification. But there's something really, really fun about being able to go dig into, hey, nobody's touched our Docker configuration in years. But now it doesn't work for our new front-end framework. So you get to go spend a week figuring out how the existing configuration works and figure out how to make it do the new thing. We're going to break down tasks and ticketing, and you'll even get to do some coding. There'll be testing and PRs and code reviews. We wind up in doing mentorship and trying to take ownership over the various applications. I like to really highlight on pull requests. A lot of people get really scared of having somebody critique their code. And this comes down to, I think, a huge problem on the code reviewer side of attacking things and not working to help develop the person on the other side of the pull request. And there's a lot of problem with the people submitting pull requests that haven't yet realized that just because they wrote code doesn't mean that it represents who they are as a person. I guarantee you, any developer that's been doing this for more than 6 months has at some point returned to code and absolutely hates seeing what they wrote before. I've heard it described often that software development's like a murder mystery where you're both the detective and the murderer, and quite often you're also the victim. What I like to do with my team working through in this solution space is I want to make sure that, and this is just me being in more of a lead role, and I guess giving hope to some of the people that aren't going to be in a mature management position or under a more mature manager. I want to make sure that the people I work with are here tomorrow. They're better than they were today, and I don't have to go replace them. I don't want to. I do this by trying to let everybody take ownership of some piece of the stack, and let them try to innovate. The one thing that comes out a lot is that if you wish to innovate, you must be willing to fail. You are either doing something that's been done a million times before, or there's no known success. You have to find your way through it and hash it out as you go. Sometimes it's going to be wrong, but you got to be able to learn from it. And then we get to hopefully see the wonderful things that we build go out into production. Yeah. Other times they just wind up cut in a trash bin somewhere. Now, obviously, the solutions part, that's what most people are going to be looking for on the regular basis. However, there's going to be a lot of meetings. Hopefully, not so much, but with every day, I'm going to come into my stand-up, try and keep these short. What happened yesterday, what's planned for today, and what's in the way. As a Scrum Master or a lead developer or whoever's basically running your stand-up situation, the goal should always be moving forward. If I see somebody bash their face on a brick wall too many times, I want to remove the brick wall or at least guide them in a different direction so they can do it differently. I'm going to come in every afternoon and we do personally an afternoon dev sync. Don't have to worry about anything but, hey, what's going on? Did you clear a blocker? Did you try the same thing 20 times and not get past it? You know, is there something in my head that could help you try better? We're going to go through, we do our backlog grooming with the different heads of department so we can help them track their highest priorities. And then we bring all the department's highest priorities together and attack them. This also gives me a great opportunity to get in. I personally try to track things that I know have been headaches in the past, possibilities of solutions for things that I've started to kind of learn and expect coming. And then a lot of times, especially here lately, I wind up in what we would call a discovery meeting, where we're going to dig into what is the problem, what are the possible solutions that we can get into. We're going to research whatever the nooks and crannies are, try to refine what information we have and what potential there is. Then we're going to come through and we're going to plan to get results. We're going to figure out what needs to happen. We're either at the end of a meeting going to come out with a plan to get work done, facilitate somebody else getting work done, or we're going to produce documentation. That second one's one of my absolute favorites. You walk into a meeting and have people saying, hey, we need your team to do this. And you can come back and say, okay, well, we actually have this thing in place that if you do it this certain kind of way, it's going to do exactly what you want. And they can go off into the sunset and make everything work. And it's great. And I don't have something else hanging out in my backlog. I also try to maintain a set of one-on-one meetings, not just with my team members, but with my boss and anybody that I deal with at least 3 times a week. So I want to get in and make sure, number one priority, we're not going to talk about work. I want to make sure that we get into, professional development, what they're learning, how's their life going. And I want to make that one-on-one connection as a person, because one of the worst things is getting into a situation where you have a huge pile of work in front of you and everybody feels isolated. Need to figure it out that you're not buried and trying to dig your way out alone. The person next to you is working on the same goals. You can help one another navigate through what's going on and come out the other side better for it. This is honestly this culture that I've been very intentional about building in my company. It comes down to the things that I've learned originally here in Code Connector. I can look around the people, well, many of the names and faces in this meeting, and been people that have helped me to better learn things about leadership, things about technology, things about code, and things about delivery. And if you don't take the time to listen to somebody, then you're never going to learn. And everybody on the team should be willing and able to say their piece. And you should be willing to listen to everybody say their piece. Because without growing together, somebody's going to wind up just stagnating and getting nowhere. Ultimately, wherever you go, especially in your profession, you need to be working to grow that community, to learn from whoever you can and teach whoever you can. I think it was often accredited to Einstein. If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you don't understand it. If you don't try to teach something, you probably don't understand it yet. Once you can take something in and not only use it, but be able to turn it around and help somebody else learn it, you get it internalized, and you'll learn it in a level that, a lot of people just don't reach. So I've managed to completely fail once again at starting my timer. So I have no clue how far over I am. But I'll open up for
We're at
questions.
6:01. Well, at 6:01, so I think, I don't know, a few minutes over, it's not the end of the world. But leave some time for questions, so I would definitely get close here.
Here we go. Questions.
Go ahead, Zion.
Yeah, so I noticed you like are very like experienced with the automation, you know. And this is actually a question I was going to ask one of the previous speakers, but what type of automation tools or just like resources would you recommend for somebody that like I want to get into it and I want to like take it to the highest level? You know what I'm saying?
All right. So I'm gonna have to admit something here a little bit. When I talk about automating stuff, I mean that I don't have a human being doing work.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about any automation frameworks. I'm not talking about robotics. I'm not talking about, what a lot of people would necessarily be talking about with automation. I want to write scripts. I want to make the code do something
Yeah.
that people are doing today. This comes down to a lot of times, really boring stuff for a lot of people. Talking about SQL reports. I'm talking about just handling the data and getting it together in a better way. I know personally, I have somebody in my mind that I work with, and I know that once a month, she spends 3 days clicking her mouse to produce reports so that we can send data to an outside organization.
To be making money in that time.
I have a life goal to automate the thing that she's doing so she can go, what's the input? Here's the report. Check over the report and make sure that it's right. And then she can click the button, move on about her day, and go back to the stuff that she does for the rest of the month that delivers more value than her clicking a mouse a million times. Because let me tell you about repetitive work. It's not just like Joe said that you become what you don't automate. It's that whatever you don't automate is the thing that's going to break. If it's not automated, you're going to do it wrong eventually. And how bad is it going to be when you have to fix it? So getting the automation in place. I mean, however you can. There's a great book. AutomateTheBoringStuff.com is, I think I've dropped this link so much. The author on Twitter blocked me because I was talking about it and I tagged him. But it takes the approach of learning Python from scratch.
Yeah, through Python.
As that, it's like it is the top tier explanation of how to write code for somebody that doesn't know how to write code. The other thing it does, the whole second half of the book, they go into, I can script something to work with Excel files or work with, Linux command line and execute tasks. I can schedule stuff and it lays out these projects where it goes, hey, I want to do this thing. It's like, cool. I'm going to write comments. Blam, 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 blam. That's the process. All right, now let's take that first comment and how do we turn it into code? Let's do the second comment and turn it into code. And when they reach the end of it, they go, hey, and by the way, you could do this other thing. And they give no explanation of how to do it, but they gave you a basis that you can start with and how you can expand the thing. So it'll help you go out and figure out what to do. You can write automation in anything. I use data in my database. I use JavaScript lambdas and messaging queues and little bits and pieces all over the place. I've got a Microsoft server that's got a task scheduler run to kick off Microsoft BAT files to run SQL directly on the server so that I could pull out reports and feed them into another tool that shoves them into another database.
Yeah.
All that's automation, and it's all just a hodgepodge of whatever's in front of you.
It's like working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Gotta sneak in here, Corey, and say, let's get Steve's question answered so we can wrap up.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry about that.
I think it's late. I think it's late for you guys.
A little bit.
My dinner's on the table too, so. All right, go ahead, Steve.
I was going to ask you, because I know you're leading a group of other developers, what is the number one most recurring problem that you have that keeps your developers from being able to do their job or to develop, or the thing that holds you back the most? And is it a technical issue? Is it code, or is it something not related to actually developing or not related to code?
If I had to pick one thing, I'd say it's my ego. As the most senior developer on the team, there's tasks that I set aside for myself, and then I get busy and don't get it done. And I honestly, I've got a small task assigned to me that I've walked forward 4 weeks in a row. And I know that as soon as I assign that task to another one of my developers, it'll be done. But I still am dumb, and I still reserve that work for me and keep it and have it not get done. If I had to pick two things, I would pick one particular page in my website that is an absolute curmudgeon of overloaded stuff that was not intentionally designed. And if anybody is familiar with Vue, I have a template that goes through if else and all kinds of stuff, and in a way that is not straightforward at all. And it is a nightmare to figure out what's going on. I've got a task in my backlog to go through refactoring it through about 3 different layers so that we can compartmentalize it, and you can go, oh, in this situation, this is what's going on, and be able to look at it in one screen and understand it. So even at that, it's not tech. It's debt and it's ego, and going towards a side conversation that you and I have had. A big part of me, the only thing between me and having my team work as efficiently as the ones that Steve worked with, is the fact that I haven't been able to justify to myself, knowing that Steve is the professional that's done this a million times already. I can't justify in my brain to go ahead and do it. So after 3 years, I've actually got my first mob session with my team happening Thursday. Anybody else got a question? We're only 10 minutes over. I've got a reputation to keep here.
If anybody wonders why Corey went last. No, that's not really why, but awesome. Well, tonight's turned out better than I expected, to be honest. Every speaker, you guys have been awesome. You're all amazing. Everybody that showed up, you're amazing. Definitely want to thank everybody and Code Connector for making all this happen. Definitely a group effort. So with that, I will say thank you to everybody and have a good night.
Night all. Thanks for coming out.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.